Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Gonzalez with Sustainable Culinary Solutions. And today's topic, I want to talk about processed foods and basically the food chain itself. We can probably go on hours and hours and days with this topic, but we're just going to probably just touch the surface because it's just too long and it's basically unsolvable. I've been trying to get to some more of these videos every day or every week, but um, the traffic on my website has just taken off over 250%. And my online store, thanks to everyone that subscribes and that's been buying, has taken off over 400%. So for those of you, all my products are natural. Just happens to be that we're talking about this stuff, but the balsamic vinegars are imported from Italy. So is the olive oils. And then the spice line, I mean, every day, I just woke up one morning and after I put the store online and, 4, 5, 6 packages a day going out. And, we have a peach mango ginger barbecue sauce and pastas and pestos and the whole line. I mean, it's just, I can't believe how it's just taken off. But a lot of people that were buying the olive oils and balsamic vinegars realized all the chemicals that were in their salad dressings, so they threw them out. And my stuff is rich enough and pure enough. It's not only just healthy, but there's no added chemicals or a lot of olive oils out there, believe it or not, aren't even real olive oils. They're just flavored oils. They put what would you flavoring into it, or they put what do you call it, chlorophyll, the green coloring. Chlorophyll comes from green vegetables, green leafy vegetables. Anyways, what I want to talk about, and before I even get into processed foods, you know, as I always say, that food is in the center of everything we do in life. Celebrations, lifestyles, how you eat, and if you have money, if you're poor, in the old days, you just ate the lay of the land. You wouldn't even get meat. You just grow your own vegetables or trade or go to the market because you buy vegetables and carrots for almost nothing, and you just use a cabbage stew with potatoes and sauteed carrots, and that's what you would eat. Nowadays, where we're headed with this recession, and I've been I try not to get involved into all this propaganda and everything, but I've been saying it for the last couple of years. This perfect storm was going to come, and the economy was going to just keep going and hitting and getting, because the labor costs were going up. But it wasn't just that. Due to the world economics and everything's been going on the last couple of years, and people taking their stimulus checks and not paying off their bills and getting more and more into debt, and the increase of interest rates. It's almost impossible to get out of. And that leads to depression. It leads to a financial crisis, and that dictates the way you eat. And delivery, I always said, okay, it took off because it was a great, cool thing. And although people are still doing the delivery, but they're slowing down on it because, these restaurants realized that, it was costing not just 30, it was 40% of their costs, increased paper costs, and increased credit card charges. The delivery companies were charging 30%, and then there's a $5 delivery fee. So you're literally paying 40 to 50% more for your food from that restaurant or that fast food chain. And that costs, I mean, just to have some fast food delivered to you for $80, it's not sustainable. Okay. And if you're doing that 3-4 days a week, so it dictates how we eat with the amount of money we have. I mean, obviously we have millions of dollars or a decent living, you're going to go to a fine dining restaurant. You can dine better and you can eat better. You can eat the organics. You can eat quality food. And if you are low on a budget, and whether you're buying the coupons or you're buying the specials and you're trying to conserve money, fast food, and your environment dictates how you eat and what you eat. There's an exception to the rule, but the rule still applies. And, I realized a few years ago that people weren't paying their bills and they're charging more and more on their credit cards. So credit card debt is through the ceiling. People are being laid off. People are sitting at home. So what do? We still don't want to cook at home. The last couple of years where everyone was working from home, they started buying the baking pans and the KitchenAids and said, okay, great, I'm going to cook. And then they realize how many resources they're using, how much water, how much electricity, how much gas. how many dishes they had to wash every day, and they got tired of it, and all that stuff just went into the pantry and stored, and they started buying takeout or easy made foods, such as mac and cheese and stuff that you could just put on the stove. And a lot of parents now have to work the two jobs, so what do? They go and buy these processed foods, and they just stock up on them, and they're basically buying juices. They're buying mac and cheese. They're buying cereal. They're buying easy stuff, the pre-made chicken nuggets. And don't say this is not me, because the majority of the institutions are showing that this is what it is. Okay, this is what we're selling out there, and this is what you're buying. And that's why when you look at what you're buying, when you go into a grocery store, and forget about going down the aisle, look at when you're checking out and the aisles facing you. What do this have? Potato chips, juices, energy drinks, soda, candy, everything that's bad for you. And we're sticking into our gut. So let's get into the world and the types of food that we eat every single day. Okay. And I try to focus on the healthy, but even the healthy, we're still not getting away from, because everything's almost 100% GMOs anyways. You might see that exception to the rule where it's fresh grown and no pesticides. But again, I was in New York, Long Island a while back, and I went to visit a organic farm, and they had a farmer's market, and the produce was beautiful. But when I walked that farm, I didn't see any of those items being grown there. And then they had a silo over there saying flammable. So you have to ask yourself, okay, what are we being told? What, is this just for show and tell? And I do understand the organics, but, farm raised fish, it's not the same as fish was 20, 30 years ago. And when I taste the vegetables, zucchini and tomatoes, it's just not have that flavor that it did years ago. The cilantro and the jalapenos and bell peppers, it's lacking that flavor because it needs to mature. The sugars grow into it, and it develops that flavor. And we're picking too fast. We're spraying it with chemicals. We're growing it in a GMO farm, and this is genetically modified. And that's the same thing with fish. We're not using fish eggs. We're reproducing fish in a farm. And I understand, because the oceans are running out of fish, but they're not naturally building that body and that structure into it, and just doesn't have the same flavor and freshness to it. Believe it or not, salmon has to swim upstream to build that body. And now when you get this farm raised, it just disintegrates. It falls apart. There's no body. There's no flavor to it. So we have to ask ourselves, where are we going with this food and the food chain? Well, we're not getting out of it. There's no way out of it. You can try your best to protest until they start regulating food and processed foods. We're not going to get away with what we're going to put into our bodies, but we can try one day at a time. And again, when we go into a recession, when the economy just goes upside down, what happens? We're depressed. We're drinking more alcohol. We're buying processed. We're making it easier. We're sitting on the couch, and we're just feeding ourselves. And I hate to say this, but we're like cattle. And that's what's going on. We have 40% of the Americans are obese right now. You're going to see life expectancy lowering itself from 65 to 55 to 40, and it's going to go right back the old days where people are just dying at a younger age. We're not getting healthier. We're not doing better for ourselves. And what they're not telling you, what's in this food. And I don't care what you read on the ingredient list, it's manipulated. So first of all, let's get into this. And I hate to say that we're feeding cattle, because what do? We feed the cattle to grow big and fat so that we can grow them faster and process them faster. I mean, the average beef is about 18 months, from birth, that we slaughter the cattle to make our meat. And if it's grass fed, maybe about 23 to 28 months. So let's talk about the obvious items that you should not buy. Canned goods. It's an enriched product, especially canned soup. And we're buying all this stuff just in case bad weather, outages, people are hoarding food just in case we have something disastrous happen in this country. And canned foods is probably one of the worst things you can do. It's an enriched product. And remember one thing about being processed and pasteurized. And processed foods means that you're going to, let's just say you're making something healthy. And basically they're pulling out of that food and putting in. So canned goods mostly have sodium, a lot of sodium, and MSG into it. And again, you have to ask yourself, any kind of food that's out there that you're purchasing and it lasts 2 years, 3 years shelf life, you got to question it. Food should not last that long. So I would not buy any canned goods. And you have to look, it's what it's doing. It's basically damaging the guts, the cardiovascular system when you're eating all these sugars and salt. And what they do into a lot of this food with sodium and a lot of this processed food, there's sugar, sodium, and fat. Remember that. And what does that do? It makes you more hungrier. So when you go out and get fast food, why is it you eat and get the supersize and the value meals? It's not just because it's just value, because you realize if you bought the small, you're still going to be hungry because all the salt they put into it, all the fat that's into it, and you're getting hungry and hungrier and you're eating more. And that's why the obesity, it's not just the fats, that we're feeding ourselves. It's just, it's your mind is being trained and triggered to eat more because you're hungrier. And that's why they put all this salt in the food, and the sodium is really bad for your heart. So another thing that, another item that we buy a lot is mac and cheese. And as I'm researching this, every day I get up and I'm researching something more about food and all these different types of foods that we buy that are processed. So mac and cheese, for example, the powdered cheese, and that's probably one of the number one foods that we feed our children. Did you know there's something called a pellet? And I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's pellet. That is a plastic, okay, it's in that cheese. And that plastic pellet that they put into that mac and cheese is a stabilizer for plastics to make it more durable. So basically, you're feeding your kids plastic. And we've been feeding our kids this mac and cheese for years. So if you're gonna make mac and cheese, make it fresh from scratch. How hard is it to actually just boil some macaroni and get a little milk or just even a little butter and toss it with some fresh grated cheese? You don't even have to make a mac and cheese sauce. You can make it a little bit more simpler, but even at that, we got to question the cheese that we're buying. So when it comes down to cheeses, you have to understand, other countries, there are no pasteurization laws. In the United States, we have to pasteurize everything, and that's not good. Pasteurization basically takes out, again, the vitamins, nutrients. And when you buy a lot of this processed Parmesan cheese, it has something called cellulose. And the cellulose that you're putting in your body is wood pulp. And I'm not sure if people realize this. And you can read these ingredients and they manipulate. And one thing is manipulated out there, and we don't realize it, is margarine, for example. It's another item that we buy a lot of. And margarine, basically, if you read on it, it says no trans fat. But if you look at the ingredients on it, they're manipulated, and the ingredients basically have verbiage on there that is trans fat. So there is trans fat in margarine, and those items that you read, I can't believe this is not butter. These items have lots of trans fat. It's probably some of the worst thing you can eat. You're better off with buying butter. But unfortunately, when you're paying $4 or $5 a pound for butter, you really think a bakery is going to add that when they can pay 50 cents or 25 cents a pound versus the $4 or $5 or $6 a pound for butter? You better bet yourself that they're not using real butter, using margarine or something called sweet text to bake your baked goods in. So there's a lot of items out there like this. And, another thing, everyone likes to use canned sodas and, these sodas. And I'm against sodas. I haven't had a soda in over 25 years. But people feel like, hey, I'm going to drink a diet soda so I don't get all those calories. But you're probably better off drinking a regular soda, Coke, and, whatever type of soda you're drinking versus having a diet. Diet has aspartame. Okay. And what's in aspartame? Well, again, it's a sugar substitute. And that sugar substitute they use for embalming fluid. And a lot of people don't realize that drinking diet soda is probably worse for you than any other sodas. And you need to just go back to regular soda or just not drink soda at all. Find something that is more healthier. But again, read the ingredients. Anything has sugar substitutes in it. And that's the same thing with these fruit juices. And they have, some kind of fructose, which is linked to glucose. And again, all these sugars, they go straight to your gut. Okay. And it's pure poison. And we're not realizing this, all this poison that we're putting in our body. But every single day, almost everything that you're buying, we're not reading. Again, the shelf life. And I even talk about the plant-based products where everyone's so happy that they have these nut cheeses and these, these plant-based burgers, but the plant-based burgers, they look like real meat and they have that red coloring into it. I'm like, and they still last a couple months, a lot of this stuff. I mean, like, okay, if it's vegan and plant-based, why should it last that long? Why should it have this look like real meat? It can't be good for you. It may be better for the environment because there's no methane gas involved, but it's not good for your body. So other items I want to talk about, again, potato chips. They're making and frying this stuff in seed oil. Um, um, Maple syrup, especially fake. What I'm talking about is fake maple syrup. Okay, this has a lot of cellulose also into it, and chemicals and sucrose. So tuna again with the mercury. So we can just keep going on and on. And bread, we talk about white bread, and again, I'm talking about processed white bread. If you're making bread from scratch at home, processed white bread, it's not good for you. It's higher levels of gluten, and it has a lot of starch, and starch isn't good for you at all. Okay. And if you tell yourself, I'm going to go get wheat bread is just white bread, but they leave the germ in there and they have the whole wheat flour. It's not much more different. So if you're making fresh from scratch, if you know a bakery that's not putting this stuff in there, I mean, again, how can bread last more than a week or a few days without getting stale and hard? I mean, without them putting some kind of, and I know they put ammonia in it in certain bakeries. So you have to really do some research on your food and the types of food that you're eating. And the list just gets long and long, and everyone's going to say, you know what, this is a downer and it's all negative about food. But to be honest with you, this is our future. And the institutions, again, why they're not going to make money. They're not going to, uh, multi trillions and trillions of dollars, the supply chain. They're not going to make money by food expiring. And look how the food has changed from the 70s and 80s and 60s and 50s till now. Fast food doesn't taste the same. I mean, in the old days, I'd go to a taco stand and the tacos were leaking with grease because they had real ground beef in it. I mean, now the tacos don't leak. Everything tastes like sodium. Every time you go buy a fast food burger or anything like that, you taste the sodium, pure salt. You don't even hear about food poisoning anymore out there. It was nonstop food poisoning. It's almost impossible to get food poisoning. It's not because they put best practices in place. It's because there's so much chemicals and sodium and sugar involved into this food, and you just keep poisoning yourself. And that's why we hear more about these peanut allergies and these celiac disease and all these problems that many people are having nowadays, and the amounts of cancer. I mean, cancer has increased in the last few years tremendously, and we can't get away with it. I mean, every time you go to a restaurant, they even have a sign on the menu that states that grilled items cause cancer. I mean, you just can't run away from it every time you turn around. The water has um, fluoride in it. I mean, the list goes on and on. I have something here. So deli meats are another item that we tend to eat a lot of, especially during the downtime where we're locked at home. And so if we weren't going out, we were buying salami, bologna, ham, turkey, processed meats, and we're making sandwiches. And I love a great sandwich, don't get me wrong, but to preserve that, they put it in a brine. So they're adding sugar and salt, sausages, you know, a lot of products have, and what they call it, this is called Instacure. Okay. This is a pink curing salt. And when I was going to culinary school, basically what they called it was Celrose. And they told us, if you ate a tablespoon of this, you're going to be dead instantly. It's going to kill you. But they put this curing salt in every processed meat that you eat. So if they're making hot dogs, if they're making beef jerky, all this stuff that you put in your body has a curing salt into it. And curing salt, okay, there's an ingredient in here. It's not just salt, but it's a nitrate, okay? A salt nitrate. And basically what they use this nitrate for, okay, it's called sodium nitrate. So what they use this for, not just to cure foods, but they use it for smoke bombs, explosives. They use it to when they're making metal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that they're using this for, and not just only food. So you got to ask yourself, what are we eating every single day that we're putting in our body? And you can go down every single aisle and you'll find something every single day. And we're not getting away from this. Even the fresh grown product that we grow. Okay, what kind of chemicals are we putting on the food? But, you know, recently Whole Foods has a product line called 365. It's organic, and that's coming from China. Now, how are we able to regulate that and manage that and say that this is a true organic product? And it's literally almost impossible. So every day, this is my research and this is what I'm doing. And this is a part of the book that I'm writing right now. How are we going to get away from this? And unless our government is going to, and senators are going to regulate these processed foods and these companies. But when you do that, you alter the recipe, you alter the process, you also alter the profit margins, because the longer it lasts, the longer the shelf life, you can sell it forever. You can make millions and millions of tons of this stuff and keep it ahead of time and ship it out throughout the United States without losing product, without spoilage. And if it lasts on the shelf for a year, 2 years, 6 months, 8 months, however long it lasts, something's 3 years, 5 years shelf life, and that's not good for food. Okay. And this is the stuff that we keep putting into our body, and we don't realize it. Let me just make sure that there's some other things here I'm not missing. Energy drinks, again, the one thing about energy drinks, people don't understand that there are no good energy drinks. Okay, you have to understand there's no such thing that gives you energy. Okay, it's just sugar, it's fructose. And basically what you're doing is you're putting borrowed energy into your body. So basically it's gonna you're substituting it. So you're giving yourself some energy, but you're borrowing it. So later on you're just gonna crash. So there's nothing for free. So whatever you read, whatever you think, everything's about marketing, advertising to get you to buy that product. And when you're buying that product and when you're going into that product, you have to understand that they want you to believe these energy drinks are going to basically save your life. When you eat healthier, when you're eating less sodium, less sugar in your life, I think the average person consumes about 18 teaspoons or tablespoons of sugar a day. I had to just look up my facts on this. But basically, you're consuming a lot of sugar. Everything you do every single day has sugar and sodium in it and fat. And that's why you're hungry. And that's why you have to snack. If you're, health conscious, you eat 12 ounces a day, protein, a starch, and a vegetable, if that's the way you're eating. But you should probably eat 4 to 5 times a day instead of 3 times, but we're overeating. You go to a fast food joint, you're grabbing 1 pound to 2 pounds of food. You go and eat, you're still hungrier. And when you go to these restaurants, they're over portion. You get 8 ounces of chicken and 8 ounces of starch and tons of vegetable. And then you get an appetizer and a salad and then a dessert. So by the time you walked out of there, you probably ate 2.5 pounds of food or more. And then you grab 2 sodas or 2 glasses of wine or maybe 3. So you're over consuming, and you train your body, and your mindset says, I need more sugar. I need more salt. It's an addictive. It's like alcohol. The more you drink, the more your body becomes immune to it. And you think that you're okay and you can handle it. And your body just keeps telling you it's a drug and you need more of it. So you need to learn to portion your food and understand the best ways to divert your diet and what we're putting into it. If you can get rid of this mac and cheese and buy fresh, Parmesan cheese that's imported and just grate it. What's so hard about getting a hand grater and getting a little chunk of Parmesan cheese and grating it on your food? Spend the extra money. I know we don't always have the money, but you end up spending it anyways. You buy the fast food and you're having it delivered. I don't need anything delivered to my home. So look down the aisle. You're going to run into processed. You have to research your product. You're not getting away from it. And again, as we go into this recession, as we have less money and credit card debt, we tend to say, okay, here's for the kids. And that's why these kids are having root canals at the age of 15, which is unacceptable. And they're very, very unhealthy, and they look sickly, or they're getting sick. And all these health problems are happening nowadays. And because we ignore it and we walk away from it, we're not paying attention to the real truth of here. And I just hope that everyone jumps on this bandwagon and just starts saying no to all these processed foods. But again, it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry. They're not going to cut it out. You don't see anyone putting this on a bill and fighting for it to get rid of this stuff in these stores. There's a lot of candy out there that's bad for you. There's a lot of chocolates that are bad for you. And, again, growing up in the 70s and 80s, chocolates completely taste a lot different nowadays. All this food tastes a lot different. It's not the same, and I guarantee you it's not the same. And this isn't a conspiracy theory. This is the truth, and I've done enough research on it. If you look on the ingredients and you just keep looking them up, you're going to find out what they mean. And a lot of them aren't even listed properly because, they get around the laws and they manipulate the laws, and there's no laws in place that are stopping these guys. So I hope that if you want to know more about all this stuff and, about the aspartams and the starch and the sodium and the enriched foods, I mean, anything that's enriched, trust me, you're putting poison into your body. And again, half the stuff that we're buying out there is poison. And you may think I'm crazy, but again, I've been in this industry for over 35 years. I do know what I'm talking about. I have seen changes. I have seen the texture in fish and vegetables and the flavors and all this stuff, and how much it's changed over the years. And it's only getting worse. Why? Because they can sell it easier. It's cheaper. Again, why am I going to lose something that's fresh and have to pay, a 50% food cost when I can get it out there for a 5% food cost? So that's the thing that comes down to it. And the statistics, the health, what's going on with our health and the obesity and everything else that's going on out there. The proof is right there. There is no conspiracy theory here. It's the facts. And everything that we're eating is making us sick every single day. And it hasn't added up yet. It hasn't gotten out there yet. But I think there's enough people out there that know that this is the truth. So when I make my vegetables, I peel the skins off of them. If I'm eating an apple, I'm peeling the skin off it. If I'm doing the tomatoes, I'm blanching them to get the skin off. So at least I get some of the impurities off, and I get some of this wax that is rolled up in, all this pesticides that might be, you're not going to get rid of it 100%. But if I don't buy the processed foods, if I'm not buying the canned goods, if I'm not eating that stuff, if I'm not buying the fruit juices every single day, canola oil, seed oils, there's a lot of oils out there that we should not be using. Pure extra virgin olive oil, you can't fry it in, but you could still eat a healthier life. Get rid of your pre-made salad oil vinegars and dressings. Buy stuff that you can just, it's the same thing. You're pouring it out of a container when you can buy extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar and just pour it into your salad and just toss it a little bit with a little Dijon mustard or something. Every little bit counts. Change your habits. You don't have to do it right away, but every day, one day at a time, to change what you're eating and putting in your body, and especially if you're kids. And the one thing about most parents out there nowadays, they had a long, hard day. They're tired. They left their kids the mac and cheese. They dropped off, fast food to them, and then they take off to the restaurant and eat something decent and have a salad or something. That's not the way to go. That wasn't how we were raised growing up. And that's not what we should be doing to our children. So anyways, I hope you get something out of this. I hope that there's, if you have questions, you can contact me at sustainableculinarysolutions.com. It's right here on the screen. And, there's some things that I'm making some changes on pretty soon. So I look forward to them. And, again, it's about health, wellness, and awareness. And I hope that you understand what I'm talking about here and you start making those changes, because your lifestyle and everyone else's lifestyle around you and your family and everyone else that you deal with, it means a lot. And what you put in your body and what you're eating. There's a lot of these foods that your body cannot process. And you're wondering, okay, why am I sick? Why am I tired? You know, and you constantly going to the doctors, and you know, when you have a cold or a flu or anything that happens to you, you don't need to, pills or anything. Your body self heals itself. It's eating well. When you're not eating well, when you're putting sodium and sugar and fat into your body, you're not going to feel good. You're going to be tired. You're going to be exhausted. And you can go to the gym and work out every single day, but 80% of what you put in your body basically changes the way you look and the way you feel and how fit you are. You can work out every single day. I watch people go into the gym for years and they still look the same. In fact, they gain weight and they don't understand. I work out every single day. Well, it's what you're putting into your body. Okay. Anyways, thank you. Please subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Like, check out my store. Again, my stuff is imported. It's pure. It's healthy. Everything I make, there's no any kind of sugar substitutes. Everything's naturally made, and I make it almost the same day, and then I ship it out. Okay. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. Have a great day. Bye-bye.